to all of you viewers of Equinoxe Television. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the news. Our major stories this evening. It has been officially confirmed the Holy Father Pope Leo XIV will be undertaking an apostolic journey to Cameroon from April 15 to 18. That announcement was made by the Apostolic Nunciator in Cameroon today and confirmed by the Vatican and also the Holy See Press Office. Pope Leo will visit the Yaoundé, Douala and Bamenda archdioceses during his stay in Cameroon. And in this edition, we discuss the significance of the Pope's visits to Cameroon and other African countries and what plus that visit will bring to the Christian lives of Catholics in Cameroon and Cameroonians as a whole. And also in this edition, critics continue to point accusing fingers to the government of Cameroon for arresting and detaining the ailing Ernest EPAN, who finally died in detention. Viewers, those are our lead stories. Details and more in just a moment. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for always being with us. We just told you in the headlines a while ago that the Vatican has announced that the Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV, will undertake an apostolic journey to Cameroon that would be from April 13 to April 23 in Africa and from April 15 to 18 in Cameroon. In a statement released on Wednesday, that is today, the Holy See confirmed that the Holy Father's 11-day apostolic journey will take him to 4 African countries: Algeria, Cameroon, Angola, and Equatorial Guinea. According to the Vatican officials, Pope Leo XIV is to visit Algiers and Annaba in Algeria from April 13 to 15, Yaoundé, Bamenda, and Douala in Cameroon. That will be from April 15 to 18, and the Holy Father, Pope Leo, will be in Luanda, Muxima, and São Remo in Angola from April 18 to 21, and Pope Leo will be in Malabo, Mongomo, and Bata in Equatorial Guinea from April 21 to April 23. The pastoral visit is in response to invitations of the respective heads of states and ecclesiastical authorities, Vatican officials have said, adding that the program of the journey will be published at a later date. And coming to Cameroon, members of the National Episcopal Conference of Cameroon have described the April 15 to 18 visit of Pope Leo XIV to the Central African nation as an expression of the Universal Church's solidarity and connection with the country and the African continent. In a statement issued following the Wednesday, February 25 announcement that was today of the 11-day pastoral visit of the Holy Father to 4 African countries, the president of the National Episcopal Conference and also members say the visit represents a moment of great spiritual significance for the Church and the entire Cameroonian nation. We will be talking more on the Pope's visits to Cameroon in the second part of the news. Over to something else. The Ministry of Defense attributes Ernest EPAN's George's death to natural causes, citing a forensic autopsy conducted by a panel of experts, including a professor and 2 medical doctors. The report highlights a complete absence of traumatic injuries and notes serious underlying medical conditions that contributed to his death, given his delicate medical history. Immaculate Fogwe with more.
Release dated 24th of February 2026, the head of communication unit at the Ministry of Defense clears the air on suspicions surrounding the cause of the death of 74-year-old Ernest EPAN at the State Defense Secretariat on December 1st. According to Captain Atongfa Gemo Cyril Serge, a forensic report produced by a panel consisting of a professor and 2 medical doctors of medicine at the Roman University Center of Legal Medicine in Switzerland was submitted to the State Council at Yaoundé. The report proved the complete absence of traumatic injuries and the existence of serious underlying medical conditions that led to the death of Ernest EPAN, who already had a delicate medical history, concluding that he died a natural death. He says the results compelled them to order the removal of the seals, thus allowing the body to be released to the family. The Ministry of Defense, narrating the circumstances that led to his death, claims the arrest of Ernest EPAN was as a result of his involvement in the violent demonstrations recorded in Douala before and after the publication of results of the 12th of October presidential election, and that his death occurred while the judicial investigation on various legal grievances was still in progress.
And still on the death of Ernest EPAN would still be alive today if he was not arrested and detained controversially, that is, according to critics. The circumstances surrounding his arrest, transfer to Yaoundé, and detention cannot be separated from his death by any objective and impartial investigation. For me, Armstrong Sandar has more.
He would not be dead by now if he wasn't taken into custody. This is part of the views from the political class in Cameroon reacting to the official reports of the government of Cameroon that EPAN died of natural causes.
To say that he died a normal death, it's out of place, because if Ernest EPAN were in his house sleeping, or if he were not arrested and kept in custody, we don't think that he would have died. Like
Silvanus Mutaga, Dr. Ako John Ako questions the credibility of the autopsy, considering its actors and its composition.
Who chose these particular individuals, and under what circumstances was an autopsy conducted on the corpse of Ernest made without the consent of the family? There is nowhere in the report indicating that the family was aware of such an autopsy. Our autopsy or dealing with a dead person's body, not a private issue of family members.
In the same lane, Njang Dennis, president of the Popular Action PAP party, finds it difficult to understand the role of accused and judged played by the government of Cameroon at the same time.
I don't think the report from the government autopsy is independent, because the government cannot be the accused and at the same time they are the ones responsible for carrying out an investigation. If we needed a credible report, a credible investigation, a credible autopsy, I believe that the family of the late Ernest EPAN and his lawyers, maybe his doctors, would have been also part of that investigation.
They say that the controversy surrounding the confiscation of his respiratory aid kit cannot be disassociated from his death.
The very first thing is that when we heard Major Emmanuel Sil, one of the defense counsel of the deceased, he said the government will refuse a contradictory autopsy by an independent expert, and this raises questions about the impartiality of the investigation.
Silvanus Botagar of the CRM party, Ako John Ako of the civil society, and Njang Dennis of the PAP all agree that the death in custody of Ernest EPAN is a serious blow to democracy and pluralism in Cameroon.
Thanks for me. And critics continue to point accusing fingers to the government of Cameroon over the death of political figure and freedom fighter Ernest EPAN, who died in police custody. We already know questions are mounting over the responsibility, and authorities are facing renewed calls for transparency after the release of his corpse following months of retention. Babila Jonathan with more.
Economist, activist, and long-time opposition voice in Cameroon, Ernest EPAN was arrested in Douala, October 24, 2025, under circumstances that remain contested. Supporters say security forces took him during a targeted sweep of political dissidents. Authorities maintain he was detained for what they call activities threatening public order. But within days, concerns grew. EPAN's family reported limited access, and his lawyers said they were denied full information about his condition. Then came the announcement that shocked many on December 1. EPAN had died in custody. Opposition leaders and right defenders began demanding answers. Human rights groups accused Cameroonian security services of responsibility, pointing to a pattern of politically motivated detentions and opaque prison conditions.
Many people are saying that the regime in Cameroon, the government of President Buea, brutally killed him. When he was taken into custody, it was discovered that he has a respiratory problem. And with this problem, many people, human rights organizations, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and many other organizations, including Cameroonians, called on the government of Cameroon to release him, but they refused. They refused and kept him in custody.
They argued that regardless of the cause of the death of Ernest EPAN, the state bears full accountability of the safety of those it holds. An autopsy carried out on Ernest EPAN's corpse by state-appointed forensic pathologists in the absence of a medical expert to represent the family of the deceased further pointed to allegations of capital murder allegedly orchestrated. This intensified pressure on government, this intensified pressure on Cameroon's authorities to explain what happened and to confront long-standing concerns about the treatment of political opponents.
In a report published by Human Rights Watch on February 23, the organization considers the 5 to 10 years prison sentence slammed the 3 military men and co-perpetrator of the Ngarbuh massacre by prosecutors of the Yaoundé military court as very lenient, considering the gravity of the crimes. The massacre of 21 people, civilians, including women and children, that was on February 14, 2020 in Ngarbuh, a village in the Ndonga-Mantung division of the Northwest region. Human Rights Watch emphasizes that they committed murder punishable by life imprisonment under the Cameroonian Penal Code. Innocent Ase with details of the recent outing of Human Rights Watch.
2026, the Yaoundé military court that handled the case of the Ngarbuh massacre on February 14, 2020, concluded its judgment after over 5 years with a verdict rendered. It slammed 3 military men accused of carrying out the Ngarbuh massacre: Baba Gida, Cyril Sanding, and Gilbert Haranga, with 8, 5, and 10 years in prison. One of the 17 ethnic Fulani militiamen identified as Tatanfo, tried in absentia, received a 10-year jail term. Each of them were fined 183,100 francs. Human Rights Watch, in a new report, qualifies these as lenient prison terms for defendants that compounds the authorities' insufficient efforts to hold senior military officers accountable and compensate victims' families. Senior Africa researcher at Human Rights Watch, Ilaria Allegrozi, says prosecutors who opened trial on the case since December 17, 2020 and rendered the verdict on February 20, 2026 did not pursue any evidence about who planned and ordered the massacre of 21 people, including 13 children. She adds that the failure of the Cameroon's prosecutors and judiciary to investigate those bearing command responsibility, combined with the denial of reparations, exacerbates the suffering of victims' families. Human Rights Watch recalls that murder is punishable by life in prison under the Cameroon's penal code, and the co-perpetrators are subjected to the same penalties as principal offenders unless otherwise provided by law. To the rights organization, the sentences are relatively light, taking into account the gravity of the killing, destruction, and looting in Ngarbuh. Human Rights Watch reminds international practice provides that punishments for serious crimes should reflect the gravity of the crime and serve the purposes, among others, of deterrence and retribution. Human Rights Watch Ilaria Allegrozi highlights that the Ngarbuh trial has delivered neither full accountability nor meaningful redress. She calls on the United Nations Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Central Africa to offer legal and technical assistance to the victims' families to enable them to file a well-grounded appeal seeking reparations and to ensure continued protection of their rights throughout the process.
To the Mongo division, where the inhabitants of a village there called Matuke are calling on the government to intervene in a power supply crisis with a solar energy company. In that area, the village had engaged in an agreement with the solar energy company to provide them with power at cheaper rates. But unfortunately, after months into that agreement, it met a deadlock. Simanji Kangebe reports on the plight of the villagers at the moment.
Inhabitants of Matuke village in Banga subdivision of the Mongo division have been going through tough times after they went into a partnership with a private enterprise for the electrification of their village, with a solar the main power source. They told us that we shall use the electricity for 99 years, but not up to 5 months even. It started giving us problems, accompanied by high rate of bills. It is now making us to feel discouraged about the whole situation. When the idea came, it was welcomed by all inhabitants who knew that their days in darkness will now be history, owing to the fact that the power they used was natural. They sacrificed their hard-earnings just for the project to be realized, but little did they know it was another problem they were getting themselves into. Before we had electricity, we paid about 400,000 francs CFA installmentally, but last year, around October, after a heavy downpour, lights went off, and since then it's been coming off and on. It has also damaged the properties of many inhabitants. The fluctuations experienced in the distribution of the power has made things difficult for the economy of Matuke village. Business operators usually complain about the bills because they can't meet up. Bills come up to about 40,000 francs CFA for someone who has a fridge in his store. In the village, it is difficult to see a welder because of the high bills they pay. It is really affecting the economy of the village. We have cried to the solar company to adjust things, but till date, no solutions.
We don't try to cry for the solar company to come back, to readjusting them back. Up to then, we need to get no solution.
The inhabitants of Matuke village are now begging on the solar company, which had an agreement with them to come and regulate things, while at the same time they have reported to the government to also look into their plight.
In news out of our national frontiers in Burkina Faso, the judiciary has sentenced 4 judges and 3 custom officers following a major corruption scandal. And over to Senegal, tensions are rising in Senegal as citizens launch a boycott of Moroccan products and plan a national march to protest the sentencing of Senegalese football fans in Rabat in Morocco. Law Maeru with our foreign pitch roundup.
Tuesday, February 24th, 4 judges and 3 custom officers in Burkina Faso were sentenced to prison for corruption and related charges. These sentences are part of the wider anti-corruption campaign led by the military government that took power in 2022. The trial, which began in January in the town of Kupela, involved 10 defendants. 7 were found guilty, while 3 other judges and a lawyer was released due to the lack of evidence. The prison sentence ranged from 2 to 8 months, with fines between 4 and 5 million francs CFA. In Senegal, social media campaigns are calling for the boycott of the Moroccan products. This movement is in response to prison sentence given to the Senegalese football fans in Morocco, which many believe are too harsh. Blaise Nyang, a legal official of the Libougui Sport Club of Rufisque, has called for a massive public protest. A national march is scheduled on February 27 at the place of Obelix in Dakar. The goal is to powerfully protest for the Moroccan court's decision and demand clemency for the fans currently held in Rabat.
And that brings us to the end of the first part of the news, viewers. Let's move on to talking points. Welcome back, viewers. The Holy Father Pope Leo XIV will be coming to Cameroon from the 15th to the 18th of April, and Catholic Christians and the clergy are really excited. Cameroonians as well are happy receiving the Holy Father Pope Leo to the country. And our guest tonight is Reverend Father Ernest EPAN. He is a Catholic priest of the Diocese of Buea. Thank you, Father, for accepting to talk to us on Equinoxe television tonight. But we begin with moral values in the country. Recently, we have witnessed violence among corporals leading to even murder. Reverend Father Ernest EPAN, you are a priest and you have been celebrating weddings in your parish. How can we explain such deterioration of moral values in our today's society, especially among corporals?
Good evening, I'm Reverend Father Ernest EPAN, serving in the Diocese of Buea, Cameroon, of course in the ecclesiastical province of Bamenda. I'm looking at marriages, looking at wedding that we have nowadays. I think some of the couples, not all, including in-laws, they go in for what is called wedding rather than marriage. I think maybe to begin, I'll prefer to give maybe a little distinction between a wedding and a marriage. Most of our youth, they go for wedding. What is wedding? They go in for flamboyance issues, a kind of car that will carry them to the court, that will take them to the hotel, that will take them to church, the kind of dresses that they'll put on, the kind of ashwabi that they're going to put on that day, food, drink, forgetting to know that marriage begins after wedding. And that's why we are told that many today confuse a wedding celebration with the reality of marriage. A joyful ceremony does not guarantee a faithful and harmonious union. Marriage requires daily commitment. It requires forgiveness. It requires prayer and reliance on God's grace. But the couples are never ready to take that. That's why the church teaches that while wedding celebrates the start, marriage is a lifelong journey reflecting God's covenant love. And I think that there are some points which have not been handled properly nowadays. That's why they see the marriages falling apart. The first is there's a weak spiritual life. The couples neglect prayer and faith formation. They are not ready. Weakening patience, empathy, and moral guidance in their daily marriage. The second, I think, is poor communication. Technology has come to stay. It has come to enhance communication, but yet majority of these couples, they do not communicate to each other. They fail to do that. So misunderstanding escalate when couples lack listening skills, conflict resolutions, and healthy ways to express their anger. The third, I think, is economic pressure. It's not news to us that there is hardship in Cameroon. Couples, some of them do not have work. There's no money. There is hardship. And so they turn to, at the end of the day, maybe to separate. And the fourth is substance abuse. Alcohol, drugs, peer pressure, peer influence, impaired judgment. These provoke aggression and destroy marital harmony. A couple taking in the morning, taking wake up daily. What do you expect? A couple taking marijuana daily. What do you expect? And the fifth is silence and shame. It's not news to us that couples hide abuse due to pride, some due to fear, delaying counseling and intervention, and it worsens the conflicts. But I think maybe there are some solutions that we could bring forward immediately. Strengthen spiritual formation. They could strengthen their spiritual formation by reading Bible, by praying as a family. They can also, promote marriage counseling and guidance, community and family support. They can equally go in for what they call protect life and intervene earlier. And the fifth, education and human dignity. They could do that, and all this will help these couples who are in marriage, especially in this Android generation. We look at the second part of it. We're talking about the teaching.
Thank you, Father. Now we know that the Catholic Church organizes doctrine classes for couples before marriage. What is the main objective? And from your observations, are those lessons enough to ensure harmony in a home, Father?
Yeah, as doctrine classes for marriages, the church gives 3 months. But then I would like to begin by saying doctrine classes before marriage is very essential for those who want to get married. Of course, the couples. And I would like to conclude before getting into the heat part of it, that doctrine classes for couples is for life. It's a school for life. So after marriage, you will not stop there. You got, to continue the doctrine classes till death. I will say so. But then what happens? Even the 3 months that is being given to the couples for doctrine classes, some do not want to participate in the doctrine classes. Some will just come maybe from abroad and maybe do 1 or 2 kind of gymnastics, and then you see them on the altar by the pastor or the priest celebrating wedding, whereas they are not prepared sacramentally, and you start seeing things falling apart. And we're talking about reasons why they teach doctrine classes. It is very important. The main objective of the Catholic pre-marriage doctrine classes is to prepare the couples for sacred vocation of marriage. Is to prepare them. Conflict resolution, family planning, and moral and spiritual responsibility of husband and wife. That's what the Catechism of the Catholic Church tells us, paragraph 1601. right up to 1605. They are intended as a school for life. Like I said, it's a school for life, helping couples understand that marriage is not only a legal or social contract, but a lifelong partnership blessed by God, reflecting Christ's love for the church. From a pastoral experience in Cameroon, however, these classes alone are often insufficient to guarantee harmony in the home. Many couples, like I said at the beginning, resist attending, considering the lessons unnecessary or maybe outdated. Some fail to see them as a practical guidance for real life challenges, financial pressures, misunderstanding, or even community and family reference. Without personal commitment, prayer, and ongoing formation, the knowledge gained in these classes may remain theoretical rather than a transformative stuff. And so the church encourages couples to approach these lessons with open hearts, recognizing them as an opportunity to learn essential skills, cultivate patience, and build a formation for a peaceful, loving household.
Okay, Father, because of time constraint, before we go now, we just received information today that the Holy Father, Pope Leo, will be in Cameroon in the month of April. How did the Catholic community in your diocese welcome the news of the papal visit today?
A message that Pope Leo will be visiting Cameroon precisely in the month of April. And as a priest working in Cameroon since the beginning of the Anglophone crisis, 2016, I can say that the announcement of the Pontiff's visit has brought profound hope and joy to the Catholic community and Cameroonians as a whole. For years, we have witnessed, families torn apart, displaced people, brothers killing themselves, sisters killing themselves, wounded hearts, and community living in fear. I think the papal visit is more than a ceremonial event. It is a spiritual balm for people deeply affected by, suffering and uncertainty. And I may say, in quotes, it is a kind of, bon françois that is being given to our community. But then how do we use it? And the faithful, I think they have welcomed this news prayerfully, anticipating, seeing the Pope as a visible sign of God's love and solidarity. And many believe that maybe the Pope's coming may touch the hearts of some of our leaders, or all of them, bottom, from top to bottom, that they can sit to see how they can bring, solution to this ongoing crisis since 2016. Beyond spiritual renewal, there is also hope that Pope's Leo moral authority will inspire politicians and community leaders to dialogue. This time around, I think maybe not the grand national dialogue, but the big dialogue that will bring all the stakeholders together to look for a lasting solution. As one who has ministered through years of tension, I see this visit as an invitation for Cameroonians to return to God in metanoia, beginning from the top to bottom, so that we can make our country a better place to stay. God bless Cameroon.
Thank you, Father. God bless Cameroon. And that was Reverend Father Ernest EPAN of the Buea Diocese speaking to us there from Buea. And we will be giving you guys details of the preparations of the Holy Father's visit to Cameroon that would be from the 15th to the 18th of April 2026. Viewers, that does it for this edition of the news. That was what we put together for you this evening. Our programs continue. Equinoxe will be yours at 7 p.m. and the news in the French language comes up at 8 p.m. Thank you so much for always being with us.